What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. And we are back with our regular time, Friday, 1:30 p.m. PST. But you may notice that it's only half of the regular show, myself. And instead, we got a great sub in for Justin James. We've got the famous John Morgan. And if you guys are unfamiliar, which I'm sure you're not, but you'll hear John Morgan all the time at pressers asking. Usually, a lot of times I feel like you're asking the first question, but you're always up there. Your voice is very easily identifiable. I think you ask great questions. So first of all, I want to say thank you, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So yeah, how's life? How's things in the world of MMA with you?
Well, man, it's good, and I appreciate you having me. First of all, let's just call out Justin James right now for the little bait and switch, right? My boy that I know forever says, "Hey, jump on the show, man. We'd love to have you. We'll chop it up. We'll talk a little UFC 314. It'll be great, right?" And I'm like, "I'm in. Let's do it." And he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm not even gonna be there, man. Sorry, you're just actually filling in as co-host." But no, man, it's good. It's good, man. It's a busy week, a busy time. I've just kind of been starting my new duties as general manager for CFFC. So really been kind of settled into that role, which has been fantastic. And obviously, the long history of the journalism will continue as well, too. So it's an exciting time.
Amazing. All right, we got a couple comments. First of all, Tehran says the great John Morgan. He says, "What's going on, fellas? What's up, Tehran? What's up, Salim? We got our usual crew. Andrew, what's up? What's up?" Andrew says, "What's up to Celine?" And Western, of course, one of our oldest followers and watcher longer, says, "What's good, lads?" Tehran. All right. So, anyways, thank you guys so much. This is a very exciting show because we got a huge UFC event. Arguably, well, it hasn't been that many, I guess, this year, but I think this is one of the most amazing main cards in a long time. I'm very, very excited. Now, for those of you guys who remember, this is the weekend where Justin and I are out in Montana. So unfortunately, in regards to UFC, we'll be commentating a Fusion Fight League event in Montana during the fights, but we're going to come back and watch it after the fact and post some reaction videos. But regardless, I cannot wait. This is so exciting. So, John, let's get right into the mix. I want to start with the main event. Start talking about Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes, and I'd love to give your thoughts. I'll just say very briefly, I've been listening to a lot of folks way brighter and way wiser than I in terms of predicting fights. And I feel like I'm going Volkanovski in this. And that is for a couple of reasons. One, because he seems to be in the best shape of his life. Two, most fighters have been saying that they feel he's the more well-rounded fighter. But that's kind of where I leave it. And I still think it's kind of 50-50, but I'm going to lean that way. What's your take?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because I think you're spot on. It's really kind of a 50-50 type situation. And I guess the real question is, what Alexander Volkanovski do we have in there? Is this vintage? I mean, you touched on, right? Guy looks like he's in incredible shape. He talked about the fact that, like, he didn't touch alcohol for 16 weeks. He didn't have a cheat meal for 16 weeks. I mean, this dude dialed it in. But, man, you can dial it in all you want, and if the chin's just not there, if that's what we're seeing, or if you slip just a little bit and you got this dangerous youngster on the come-up as well, and it's kind of his time to shine, you never know. So, look, I believe Alexander Volkanovski absolutely is the better fighter overall, the more well-rounded fighter. I mean, you're talking about potentially the greatest 145-pounder of all time, but he does stand at 1-3 in his last 4 fights. Granted, Ilia Topuria is the Makhachev twice. So, we're talking about some absolute studs in the division. So, look, if he's there, if he's 100% there, if this is 2022 version, Tulin Max Holloway type Alexander Volkanovski, he gets this done, no problem. But if they slip in just a little bit, if there's just a little bit of regression, Diego Lopes is dangerous. So, I tend to like your pick with Volkanovski overall, but I can't make it with much certainty because I don't know. Like I said, if you tell me I'm getting 2022 Volk, no problem. This is a lock. Go take your mortgage payment, throw it on it right there, empty your 401k. This is done. But I don't know that we have that. So this is a big opportunity. And what about just his story that Diego Lopes is on, this trajectory that he's on? I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. What a cool moment this would be for him. So I like Volkanovski as well, but I'll tell you what, I don't like it by much.
One cool thing about Diego Lopes, I don't know if this is something that you pay that much attention to. I imagine you do as a journalist, but Diego Lopes has taken on to learn English, and his English is phenomenal. You heard him speaking at the press conference. I've heard him in multiple interviews. Me as a fan, obviously a native English speaker, I love that because one of the biggest and most important parts of the sport to me is being able to connect with the fighters and hear the fighters and listen to their trials and tribulations. So that has made me an even bigger fan of Diego Lopes. Of course, his fighting style is super exciting. But what I'll say is this. in either outcome, and I always love the storylines. I always love to see what's going to happen after the fact. And in either case, it's a really cool story, right? As you mentioned, if Diego gets it done, what an amazing trajectory to cap it off at getting the belt at this point. But if Volkanovski can get it done, what an incredible comeback story to regain the throne. Maybe he has another title defense or two, and then he walks off into the sunset. So either way, I'm really excited to see the outcome. As you mentioned, 50-50. What an exciting fight. Let's talk. I'm going to highlight a couple comments, and we're going to move on. Oh, Tehran just says, what's up, West? And Tehran says, Volk is going to be too smart for Lopes, in my opinion. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I think that's a great point because Volk is, he's been fighting at the higher level for so much longer. Yeah, Diego Lopes has a lot of fights as well, but not against the absolute elites like that. So, yeah, he's going to be the more savvy veteran in there. There's no doubt about it. But Diego Lopes is dangerous, man. He really is dangerous. Man, you talk about learning the English. I love that. I'm right along with you on that. I always feel a little selfish when I say that. Like, why don't you just learn Portuguese or why don't you learn Spanish? But it just is an easier connection. But also, man, I love the work that he's been putting in with Oklahoma State University, right? He's been going up to Stillwater and training with David Taylor and the Cowboys up there at college wrestling. So that's been pretty cool. But you're spot on with this. That's what makes this card, you talked about off the top, this card being like one of the best cards of the year. I was talking actually with my boss about this earlier today. Maybe not necessarily the biggest superstars in the sport, but there's so many little storylines in this fight card that it's very intriguing. Like, you look at that entire main card, there's fun stuff, and this is one of them for sure, man. Great storylines, and like you said, either way, the UFC is going to have a pretty cool storyline coming out of it.
By the way, Tehran, just to mention, he's one of our longtime listeners. He's also a fighter himself. I can't remember, Tehran, if you want to share your record, but he always gives us amazing insights, and he's like so dialed into the sport, so he'll tell us things a lot of times that we're unaware of, so we love having him on the show. Thank you again for joining live. Okay, let's move on to what some people are calling the people's main event. This or Bryce Mitchell versus Joan Silva. I don't know which is the real people's main event, but let's go to Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. Now, I am not a regular sports bettor. I do it very, very infrequently, and it's because I love the sport so much. It doesn't add that much to it, so I don't really feel a need to. But I broke that rule in this fight card, and this is one of the fights that I broke the rule with. I took Paddy Pimblett, and I want to tell you why before I turn it over to you. I heard an amazing episode of the Weighing In podcast where Josh Thompson laid out a very strong and convincing argument that Michael Chandler is not the same fighter he used to be, throwing looping punches as opposed to straight punches, barely showing any wrestling, saying that he thinks his wrestling has completely gone away because it is no longer working on it. And so for a multitude of reasons, he made a very strong case that he believes Paddy is definitely going to win, although you can never count Chandler out. That's where I'm leaning, and we can talk about the story afterwards. But first, what do you think about this fight? What's your call?
It's interesting. I mean, there's some things that you say in there in Josh Thompson's piece that make some sense. I don't know that I'd say he's not necessarily working on wrestling anymore. I mean, this dude, like, his workouts are insane. I'm sure he's working on everything. Now, is it,
sure.
Division I, what he was doing at Missouri? Like, no, not anymore at that point. But, I mean, the MMA wrestling is still there. But this is an intriguing fight. This is another, I'll be honest with you, to me, this is another one that's 50-50. I mean, you can really see Michael Chandler I feel like Michael Chandler is the better striker. I mean, say what you will about the criticisms, but I feel like he's the more powerful guy, especially early. Now, I think what makes this one intriguing is that it's 5 rounds. And so if this thing ends early on, I think you got to lean towards Michael Chandler. But Michael Chandler has struggled to gain success in the UFC. As exciting as he is and as fun as he's been, as much as you want to watch his fights, he hasn't gotten necessarily the results. He finds a way to kind of make some mistakes, and he tends to get caught. And Paddy Pimblett is dangerous. I think a lot of people are undervaluing Paddy Pimblett on his rise. They kind of looked at him as, he's just a haircut. He's just an accent. He's a hype job. And he's not. He's a phenomenal fighter, and this is a huge opportunity for him. So 50-50 for me. I like the fact that I can get Chandler at dog money, given his pedigree and given who he's competed against. I like the fact that I can get him as a dog. But I don't hate your Paddy Pimblett pick. So another 50-50 fight for me. I think I'll lean slightly towards Michael Chandler, but I also think it's because what I've come to realize as I've analyzed this fight this week is I think it's just because I'm an old head that's a Michael Chandler homer, you know what I mean? And so I'm pulling for the guy because he's like the nicest dude on the face of the earth. It's not that Paddy isn't. So I think I'm pulling for him. I think it's a little bit of a heart pick. I think the head pick would, working with the brain would probably be Paddy Pimblett. Especially given that if this thing goes late, that could be problematic for Chandler.
Okay, now let's talk about storylines. Let's say, so this one, I think I gotta say, if Paddy wins, it's a much more interesting storyline. So we can play this out. Paddy wins, maybe depending on how he wins, maybe it takes him to top 7, top 6, maybe even top 5, which would be incredible with such a personality and which is such a star persona. And then on the other side, we have Ilya, rumors of him, of course, maybe fighting Islam or maybe fighting Oliveira seems to be the new hot rumor. Somehow, some way, maybe it takes Paddy one more fight, but we could eventually see Ilya versus Paddy, which I've been dying to see since like years ago when Paddy threw the hand sanitizer bottle at Ilya. Is this a fight that you're excited to see too, or is this just me wanting like too much drama and it doesn't actually interest you?
I mean, no, listen, I do think that you're 100% right that from a storyline perspective and a UFC interest perspective, Paddy Pimblett is the bigger win, right? It's better for company, it's better for the business because there's so many things. A, he's got an international market. Anytime you're tied to an international market, I think that's good. A country gets behind you. B, yes, he's still got some managing to go to get there, but you do have the story with Ilia Topuria. I don't know how much that resonates right now with the with the mainstream audience, but you can take some clips and you can start putting some things together and they're going to talk about it. So definitely in the long run. And the other thing too is like Michael Chandler always has the Conor McGregor in his back pocket, right? That's always there. And Michael Chandler, win or lose, like if Michael Chandler loses, it's not like the next time he fights, you're not going to want to see it. It's going to be exciting and you can pair him up against anybody. Meanwhile, if Paddy Pimblett loses, it kind of takes a little shine off, right? That's when people start going, see, told you, he was always just a hype job. As soon as he got up to the top, he came up short. So I 100% agree with you. If we're talking about what's better for business, what's better for excitement, what's better for storylines, all day long, it's Paddy Pimblett winning.
Now, you also talked about Volkanovski's training and that he's quit alcohol and he's super dialed in. Look at Paddy, by the way, on that same front. He's dialed in his diet. He seems to be in the best shape ever. There was never that ballooning period. Now, he said what usually makes him balloon up is typically coming to the States and eating in the States because the food is different and there's so much. He goes to buffets and all these things. So maybe it's a combination of those two things. But I want to, again, me thinking optimistically, I want to take this as a sign that Paddy is just extra, like super dialed in for this fight. And he's going to get it done. But anyways, I'm so excited. Regardless of what happens, the fight is going to probably be the most exciting or one of the most exciting fights of the night. So I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. And I would say, you were like, hey, kind of the people's main event. But I know you had to bite yourself in your tongue there for a second. I don't know, man. There's a bunch of them that could be the people's main event, But this is fun. I'm excited for this one for sure.
We're going to get to the next one that could be the real main event. But we got a couple comments first. So Tehran says, oh, wait, let me see here. He goes, oh, wait, Tehran says he's not a fighter. I thought you were a fighter, Tehran. I thought you said that before you had a record. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. And then he says,
I just rolled with it. I just rolled with it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I've never had a sanction bout, but I'm undefeated in the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. We got Johnny Monday coming back. He's been giving us a lot of great comments and insights lately. He said, what's up, boys? Whoa, John Morgan, 10-7 hitting the big time. That's what I'm saying. We've had, it's all due to Justin and people that he knows like you. It's been it's like, this is a dream. I want to tell you, by the way, I've been watching you for years, dude. So this is like fantasy land that this is even happening right now, where I got to talk to Oscar Willis. I got to talk to some fighters out of Extreme Couture as well on earlier shows, Brad Tavares, different things like that. So this whole journey with Justin has been a dream. So anyways, yeah, thank you again for joining. But yeah, this is big time and this is a big deal for me. So I really appreciate it. Tehran's got one more comment. He says, if Chandler can be patient like he was against Hooker, he can beat Paddy. I'm hoping he takes that route. Okay, so Tehran is rooting for Chandler. We shall see. One day left.
The unfortunate reality being there that Chandler and patience aren't exactly two words that are used together a whole lot, right? You know what I mean? But you're 100% right about that. It's all going to come down to tactical game plan because I think Paddy's best method of victory is getting the fight to the ground, right? And I understand that maybe the wrestling isn't as sharp as it was, but I do think, Chandler can be patient, kind of implore like a sprawl and brawl type play. I think he can be victorious. I think he has more power in his shots, but we'll see, man. I'm excited for it as well. I'm loving this fight.
I'm very curious too, because Paddy has talked a big game about his grappling. He still says his grappling is very, very underestimated in the UFC. He also said, by the way, I forgot to mention this. He said in the interview, I can't remember who it was with, but he said that people are saying, hey, why did King Green shoot in that way? He shouldn't have done that. He's like, that's not what happened. He's like, I leg kicked him and he was stumbling and he had the choice of either doing something else or diving in. He chose to dive in. So he's like, I created that. I caused that. I set that up. So that's a very important thing to know. Did you know that, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen it in the series. Yeah, like it's all the little subtle things sometimes that you don't see on first watch. So absolutely.
That's so cool. I don't know. I'm really riding high on Paddy. I think he's going to get it done. I think he's majorly underestimated, and I can't wait to see what happens. But now, let's go on to what could also be considered the main event. We got Bryce Mitchell versus Jean Silva, and maybe I'm excited for this fight for all the wrong reasons. I don't know, but I again am taking the underdog, and this one I put money on as well. Like Paddy Pimblett, I also put money on Bryce Mitchell. It's not a parlay; those are individual bets. But I'm going for Bryce Mitchell. I could tell you why in a second, but who do you have? I want to hear your thoughts first.
Well, I think it's savvy. I think I'm going to line up with you. To be honest, I think Bryce Mitchell, especially as an underdog, is not getting the respect that he deserves here in terms of his skills. I mean, not that John Silva isn't. John Silva is a star on the rise, man. You see the way the crowd reacts to him. I'm not in Miami this week, but I was in Las Vegas whenever the on-sale press conference happened and these two were on stage, and the fan reaction both negatively to Bryce Mitchell and positively to John Silva was amazing. And you see him running around barking and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, the guy is a star in the making. He's exciting. I like him. But I know that people don't like Bryce Mitchell. I know they don't like some of the comments that he's made, and because of that, they kind of turned on him. I think they're discounting his skills because of the dislike for the guy himself. And you look at the skills that he brings to the table. He's got a phenomenal grappling base. His striking obviously didn't necessarily fare him well against Josh Emmett, but he has faced some elite level strikers along the way. And I think he's dangerous. And I think at the odds that you're seeing on this thing, I think Bryce Mitchell is absolutely the play in this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I think I'm going to side with a lot of what you feel, because I think Bryce Mitchell is a smart underdog play, especially at the odds that you're getting.
Well, here's the thing. I tried to place the bet earlier in the week when it was plus 295. I got it in at plus 200, but still not bad. Yeah, I mean, look, again, Bryce Mitchell, I think he's one of, I don't know, several fighters to ever get a twister. I know his grappling and submissions are I wouldn't say underestimated, but they're very strong. Oh, there's been three, you said? Three twisters?
Yep.
Okay.
3 of them.
So yeah, I mean he can do a lot in the submission game, and again, like he's a very talented fighter. It could go either way, but I'm picking Bryce Mitchell also for the fact that I feel that he believes so fervently that he's going to win because of the spiritual element, the dreams that he's been having. If you listen to the interviews, I think he did with MMA Guru, or I can't remember who with, but he said he's been receiving signs about 412. What am I saying? 412, 314. He's saying that's the he got a phone call at there's something with 412. I can't remember what, but his son was born at 412. The area code is 412 in Pittsburgh. So he's having like all these little numerical symbols and signs. So he believes so strongly that he's going to win. I think that's going to translate to confidence. Do you put any weight on those types of beliefs?
I mean, do I believe that there's numerical signs from heaven pointing to his victory? No, I don't. But do I believe that he is utterly confident? I do. Yeah. There is a difference. You can see it in athletes, especially when it's somebody you've been around a lot. If it's your first time that you've been exposed to him, maybe not, but you can see it in athletes that are truly feeling a degree of self-belief and confidence, which is so important in this sport, versus people that are just telling themselves something to try to get themselves hyped up and to believe in it. And you're right. And I think everything that John Silva has done to kind of sell this fight and to fire things up has really, really made Bryce Mitchell furious, and he's taking it personal, and he is dialed in and ready to go. And if you thought it was just, I don't like this, no, I mean, this dude is on point right now. So yeah, I agree. And again, would it surprise me if John Silva lands clean and knocks him out? No, it wouldn't. John Silva is that dangerous, but especially if we're talking about from an odds-making perspective, especially as you said early on, I mean, you can see the line is plummeting as we speak because a lot of people are feeling, I think, the same way we are right now. But yes, especially if you were able to jump in early when it was up around like 290, come on, man. You can get Bryce Mitchell at nearly 3-1. You got to take it. So, I'm not into numerology and signs from heaven in terms of fight results, but in terms of how it actually affects the mindset and how it can impact his confidence, I do believe that it is working for Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah, that's what I mean in terms of like he believes it, whether we believe it or not, I think, but the fact that he believes it so much, I wonder. The last thing I'll say, the presser. So you mentioned a lot of the fans and the crowd have turned on Bryce Mitchell, but I think Bryce won a lot of people back over. Do you remember the line he did about the dogs?
Oh, yes. I mean, that was kind of a weird one to get people back on, but it was savage. It was weird because I was watching the press conference. He's like, I put down a lot of dogs. He's like, and they whine right before they die, whatever. I was like, okay, A, that's a savage line, but I was like, B, like shooting puppies. But obviously he's talking about like, shooting these wild dogs that are coming up to eat his chickens. He's like on a farm, but I'm like, damn, Bryce, people are pissed at you, and the way you get them back on your side and say that I shoot puppies, like I don't think that's the way you go about it. But it was savage. I liked it. I
It
like
was
this.
crazy. I said this. I made a reaction video too because I was like, "Dang, that line was ice cold." You know, it was sincere. But
Yep.
then I'm like, I'm a dog lover. I love dogs, but I know. And I said the same thing. Maybe he's talking about coyotes, or maybe he's talking about just whatever animals that are harassing him. I have to believe he's just doing it to defend his family and his livestock.
He's
So it's
like,
fine.
brother, I went to the pet store this weekend and I shot 17 puppies right there. I just killed them all. Cute little 3-pound things, fluffy. I don't
Oh,
care.
no.
I just killed them all.
that wouldn't have worked so well if I think he went down that route. But yeah, that was ice cold. And then the stare down was amazing. That gave me chills. John Silva tried to bark in his face, and he just stood there like a pillar. I don't know. I'm feeling that Bryce Mitchell's got the mental edge, but we shall see. We got a couple of comments I want to highlight. Teron says, I see myself in Bryce Mitchell. We are so misunderstood, but people fear what they don't understand. Yeah, fair. Johnny Monday says, that's interesting that you see yourself in Bryce. He is misunderstood for sure. Okay, we're going to see those predictions. Western says, stray dogs, LOL. And then, wait. Silva missed weight? Is that real?
He made it on second attempt, but he had to come back and make it.
Whoa.
I believe. Let me double check that. I thought he came back and made it on second attempt.
Okay, let's see. Dude, I wish I should have put more money on Bryce. Dang it.
Let me double check and make sure I'm not crazy. I thought he came back and made it on second attempt.
All right, while you check that, we got another comment from Johnny Monday. He said Bryce's striking is being underestimated. I will say this too, in Bryce's defense, he had like valid excuses as to why he lost to Ilya and why he lost to Josh Emmett. He did no prep for Josh Emmett. Or what were you going to say, John?
He did. He made 146 on second attempt. I want to make sure I wasn't crazy there.
Okay, but still, that's got to be a bad sign for him if he had to come back, right? Maybe not for sure, but...
I mean, you don't like to see it. I mean, you never know. You never know what it is. You know what I mean? And but yeah, you'd like to see him make it on first attempt for sure.
Teron has a question for you. He says, John Morgan, are you from Texas?
I am originally from Dallas, Texas. DeSoto, actually, a suburb of Dallas. But yeah, Dallas, Texas is where I'm from.
Right on. I'm going to Austin in a couple months, so that's going to be cool. I love Texas. Texas is awesome.
Yeah, Texas is awesome, man. Great place to live. Austin's still a great town as well, man. Love Texas.
Okay, guys, so those are the 3 fights that I wanted to talk about for tomorrow's big UFC event. But now we got some other news that I'd love to chat about. First of all, this story broke a couple days ago, courtesy, well, maybe somebody else broke it, but I saw the tweet from Ariel Helwani. He mentioned that the May events, there was a doubleheader back-to-back events that the GFL was planning. The most notable fight, I would say, was Tony Ferguson versus Dylan Dennis. Those events have been postponed. Most people are arguing that it's been canceled altogether. And the reason or the explanation for the cancellation or / postponement is one of the primary investors, I guess, didn't fulfill their obligations. Sounds like they just are pulling. I don't know the whole backstory. You may know way more. But yeah, John Morgan, can I turn over to you? You probably were 10 times more dialed into this than me. What are your thoughts on this announcement?
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate, right? Because you had a lot of athletes tied into this. I mean, you talk Tony Ferguson, Dylan Dennis, but there were a heck of a lot of UFC veterans and big show veterans of the sport that were looking forward to this. You know, some that maybe were a little past their prime for sure, but still big superstars in the sport that were expected to be competing here. It has been delayed. The owner, Darren Owen, says, listen, we're going to try to, shoot things for June and that sort of thing. But it just makes you wonder, I mean, is all of a sudden that primary backer, he's cool with paying for money in June, but he wasn't cool in May. So what is that about? So it just doesn't really seem like a good place right now. I want to be clear. Like, I wish not, I've seen a lot of people that are kind of just like dancing on the grave of GFL and just being like, haha, this was never anything to begin with. I'm not in that space. I mean, I think the more opportunities, the more promotions we have for athletes to compete in, it's opportunities for them to get paid. So I'd love to see nothing more than there to be another viable promotion out there where athletes can, utilize their services. But it doesn't look good right now. It just doesn't look good right now. I mean, if your primary investor didn't have the money ready for you, I mean, did you not already have it liquid anyway? Were you not ready you didn't have it sitting in a bank account? And again, why a couple weeks later it's going to be okay? So, listen, supposedly there's a possibility. As you said, the initial term was delayed. There's a possibility that it could happen, but it just does not look good. And to be honest with you, man, the salaries they were promising and the payroll they were putting together always looked like it was going to be an incredible challenge, man. I mean, there would need to be significant amounts of revenue to cover those purses. And to my knowledge, We had no broadcast agreements in place. We never saw any official partners and sponsors in place. So I don't know where the revenue was. I mean, the ticket prices, it was always looking a little bit suspect, and obviously, essentially canceling or perhaps delaying doesn't make it look any better.
This is exactly what Ariel Helwani said. He said one of the first things they should have done, or I guess what most promotions do, is to try and get a broadcast deal, and that money can help to pay for or offset a lot of the initial costs. So I guess that wasn't done for whatever reason. And it maybe, and again, this is just pure speculation, but maybe it could have been something along the lines of the primary backer decided not to go ahead with the funds, maybe because obligations weren't met on the other side or certain steps hadn't been taken. So they didn't know that he or she or whoever no longer felt comfortable. Who knows? I do want to, this gets to a broader question though. And again, not to be dancing on the grave by any means, because this is an unfortunate thing, but I made a video talking about this. And one of the things that again, this is pure speculation on my part, but I've seen just watching what the UFC has done with the sport of mixed martial arts over the years. I think nobody can deny that they built it up to be this worldwide massive phenomenon. And that has raised all tides. It's allowed in general salaries to raise massively. Nobody was talking about $1 million paydays or multi-million-dollar paydays 20 years ago. That was a fantasy. That was a dream. But because the UFC has really treated this like a business and has put in the time to build this marketing machine, to build performance institutes, to make partnerships all across the globe, I wonder if maybe for the sport as a whole, other competitor organizations like GFL no longer existing might be better for MMA in the long term, because it's not as though the UFC is just trying to take a quick payday. They're really trying to build infrastructure. And so this could mean even higher paydays for fighters in the UFC in the future. Is there anything to what I'm saying that you agree with, or do you think I'm off the mark?
I think there's pros and cons of it, right? Because you are right. I mean, they continue to build the platform, and as they continue to grow, salaries have increased, right? I mean, they just have. You look back to what guys were making in the early days of the UFC, it was nothing compared to like what they're making now. But where some competition is needed is there's no reason for the UFC to go higher than they feel comfortable with, right? So let's say you're not under contract and you're like, hey, here's what I think I'm worth on my next contract. And they say, well, we don't think you are. Well, if you got no way to go out and prove it by getting bids from other promoters, then there's no way for you to kind of hold their feet to the fire and say, listen,
Sure.
I've already been told I can get $1 million from Bellator. Like, are you going to pay me $1 million or not, or should I leave? So there's a little bit of a balance of it. I mean, look, it is exciting. Like I look at, say, like, PFL, unfortunately, they've struggled to keep some of those big name Bellator athletes under contract. And we're seeing, Patricio Pitbull is coming over here this weekend. Aaron Pico, I've always been very high on. I can't wait to see him in the UFC. You know what I mean? So from a fan perspective, it's great to kind of just, hey man, what if we just had everybody under one banner? We could see every fight that we want to see. And again, I think the UFC, it's inarguable that the UFC has done more to build the industry than any other promotion in the history of mixed martial arts. That is inarguable. So them as continuing to take the machine and to build it and to take it to network television and to take it to ESPN and to take it around the globe, they're absolutely valuable for that. But for the individual fighters, having some competition out there is nice, because at least then you have multiple bidders for your services when it comes time to get a contract.
A very, very fair point. Very fair point. We got a couple comments I want to highlight really quickly. Let's take a look. Oh, Tehran says, I love Houston. Boom. You got some Texas love. Johnny Monday says, I would love hearing John's personal favorite MMA fight, any era, any organization. We'll come back to that. I would love to know as well. Ooh, MMA Holes is making another appearance. I heard from a reliable source that GFL will still 100% happen. Can you elaborate on that reliable source? I'd love to know. And
I would like to. I'd like to. I mean, great. That if you want to tell me that they 100% intend to still hold the event, I believe you. But how can you say it will 100% happen if we know that the financial backer that was the one that was providing the currency for this isn't going to have it there? So again, not doubting whatever you hear, but I just wonder if they're saying no, we fully intend to charge ahead, or no, we fully intend to charge ahead. And oh, by the way, we now have the funding secured from an alternate source that will allow us to put this event on. Or do they simply find themselves in the same position a month from now?
Right. 100%. By the way, we got a shout out to you. Big Unk MMA says, what's good? And shout out to the legendary John Morgan. That's right. Okay, we're going to back it up to that question from Johnny Monday. I thought it was a cool question. I'd love to hear it. What's your favorite fight?
Man, that is so difficult, because I've been so fortunate to be at so many fights. I mean, there's so many moments I've been caged. I feel blessed. They play the Baba O'Reilly video and you see all these amazing highlights and amazing moments. And I'm like, look, blue shirt there, blue shirt there, blue shirt there. You know what I mean? Like, I was there for him. So it's really, there's been so many incredible moments. I mean, obviously the rise of Conor McGregor was amazing. I mean, that dude is on an absolute another level. Getting to see his final headliner over in Ireland before he kind of made the jump, you know, when he was facing Diego Brandao and it was in Dublin, and being in that small building in front of, you know, his nation before he launched into superstardom, that was incredible. Anderson Silva, you know, his entire run when he was like just operating in the matrix and people couldn't touch him, and those, you know, those walk-ins, the legendary walk-ins, Ain't No Sunshine when he came in there, those were amazing. Gosh, I mean, being in Brazil, the return to Brazil, man, the first event in Brazil was amazing. You know, seeing like the legend Big Nog and just how revered he was down there. Man, Vitor Belfort, Anderson Silva, that was a crazy moment. I mean, it's there's so many that just jump out. That there's just, I've been just blessed by the number of moments. The rise of Ronda Rousey, you know, seeing the women's game change. I always say, I'll never forget the first time going to an open workout in Ronda Rousey's UFC debut. And, you know, there were like soccer moms and their daughters at a UFC open workout, which you'd never seen that before. You know what I mean? That was incredible. Jose Aldo's incredible. I mean, just, I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed to be at a ton of them. It's hard to narrow down to one, but I can remember so many amazing moments and amazing locations, especially, you know, getting to travel the world in order to cover a sport that I love so much has been an absolute blessing.
Of course, that's so sick. Best job. And I even say for commentating for Fusion Fight League is a dream job. Even to watch up-and-coming fighters make their mark and on their journey to the UFC is a dream job. And you get the best seat in the house. And for me, it's me and Justin, so we're just like chopping it up, chatting about the fights. Nothing beats that. Okay, we did get a comment. I hope I'm not bringing up something but somebody's mentioning Colby. Do you mind if I show this comment?
So that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so he's referencing the push-up thing. He says, "Hey, John, drop and give me 10." The whole Kobe thing. He throws that out there. I just want to ask if you're, and you can say whatever you want, or you don't have to even mention if you want. But like, have you ever smoothed things over with Kobe or talked things over, or is you guys just don't communicate whatsoever?
I'll be honest with you. I have no idea where the whole shtick came from, to be honest with you. I texted him. It's actually ironic. When I texted him after it happened to just be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I don't reach out to fighters a lot, to be honest with you. I actually had a really good relationship with Colby Covington. I was at like his UFC debut. I believe it was either his first or second fight. It was in Macau. He was one of the few English-speaking fighters that was there, so I interviewed him, even though it was very early in his career. Had a great relationship with him. I remember after he lost to Usman, it was funny. So when I texted him to just be like, "Hey, do you want to talk? Like, what's going on?" I looked into my history, and the previous text that I had sent to him was me telling him after he lost to Usman, like, "Hey, keep your head up, man. You're a phenomenal athlete. This doesn't represent who you are. You know, there's still many great days ahead for you," because I saw how discouraged he looked. And I typically won't text a fighter when they win, because they're on top of the world and they're great. But when you see somebody that's low and you know how lonely that can be, I just wanted to send him a shout out to be like, "Hey, man, keep your head up." You know what I mean? This is not who you are, and there's great days ahead for you. So yeah, the whole thing, I really don't even know what it boils down to. If it was even real, if somebody told him, if you go back and watch the tape the first time he said it to me, you'll see that I just start cracking up and laughing, because I'm like, "Oh, I guess it's my day to catch the Colby strays." Like, all right, whatever. And then it just continued on, and I was like, well, I'm not going to keep, you know, playing the shtick where like why am I going to keep trying to ask you a question if every time I try to ask you a question you say this? So I just let it go and moved on. But yeah, I reached out to him directly, didn't hear back. Reached out to his team who at MMA Masters, who I love those guys as well, and just said, "Hey, I don't know what this is about, but I mean, if there's a way to smooth it over," and they were like, "You know, it is what it is. Don't worry." You know what I'm saying? So no, never been smoothed out. It is what it is. I don't know. I like I said, the weird thing for me is I don't even know if he really thinks I said something, or if he just made it up for the point of like, let's have some fun at the press conference or whatever, and then just was like, well, I've already said something, so now I got to stay on it. So I really don't even know what the genesis of it was, or if it was just a joke.
It could have been part of his whole shtick. The other thing is, okay, that's really interesting, because I didn't know that. So that's fascinating. And also, Ariel has said something similar to that. Like, Kobe won't go on Ariel's show, and he's not quite sure why. So God knows, maybe there is some random thing that he's sensitive about, or it just could all be part of his shtick to have these fake or artificial beefs with journalists. I don't really know. Anyways,
I can tell you, until the whole press conference thing, I had a great relationship with Colby Covington. And by the way, Colby's the nicest human being, dude. He would always show up to interviews early. You know, he'd come in with a cup of coffee. He'd sit down 5 minutes early. You know, be like, "Oh, we're still setting up. Sorry, brother. Oh, take your time." I mean, he's really the nicest dude. So again, when it first started, I thought it was just a joke, and it was my day to catch strays. Like I said, I never said anything about him being undeserving. You can go back and listen to any interview, any press conference, whatever. I never said anything like it. So I thought it was just shtick, but then I guess it's like, then once you get it going, I guess you got to keep kayfabe or whatever and just keep rolling with it. So it is what it is.
I have to be honest. I have made a couple. I try to be super respectful of all the fighters because they all do something that I'm too scared to do, truth be told.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Colby is one guy that I actually have said, made a couple negative videos about him because I don't appreciate some of the lengths to which he's gone. Like some of it, I know he's saying, hey, it's the persona or whatever. It's a character, but like he crosses the line so habitually in terms of what he says about people. I think he's lost the edge where it used to be really funny, a lot of his stuff. And then the stuff he said about Leon Edwards' father, I don't get it. I just don't see a place for any of that. So I'm not a Kobe fan, and he's one of the few fighters that I just really. Yeah, I don't know.
Listen, what I've always said is like you shouldn't feel like as a journalist or a podcast host, whatever, that you can't criticize. What I've always said is just don't write anything, don't say anything, don't put anything on social media, whatever, that you wouldn't be willing to say to somebody's face. You know what I mean? If you're willing to say it to somebody's face because it's an honest opinion and it's just the way you feel, then it's fine. You know what I mean? But don't trash talk somebody and expect, you would never say that to them. So for me, I've always said trash talk is fun. It makes it. I mean, how are we not excited about Bryce Mitchell, John Silva because of the back and forth that's gone between them, right? It adds flavor to fight sport. But I have always said, to me, the line is just leave race, religion, and family out of it. You know what I mean? Like you don't need that, man. There's ways to be clever and fun and talk trash. You don't need to talk about somebody's family who isn't the one that's getting involved in the fight to begin with. Race obviously doesn't need to be in there, religion as well. So race, religion, family, leave it out. So, that kind of stuff to me is just not fun in the build up to it. I mean, I think about talk about like memorable moments and stuff, the build up of Conor Habib. I was in Brooklyn for all that. Like, dude, when they had their fight, I could not wait for that fight week to be over, man. It was so dark and just like the energy was awful. Now, like, I just couldn't wait for fight week to be done. So, that was another memorable stretch, by the way, as well. Talking to Dana White in underneath Barclays Arena after the bus incident happened, that was bizarre. So there's been some wild ones.
Dude, that whole fight was crazy. I've probably rewatched that fight, Conor versus Habib, probably like 15 times. I've watched it so many times because the whole fight was like a play, just watching what was going on back and forth. And then Conor having the resurgence in the third round and people thinking like he would come back, that vicious ground and pound in round 2. And then the jumping over the whole thing was a movie. It was insane.
It's funny because it was one of the first times that they split press row up. Now they do it all the time where like the press row didn't go all the way across that one side of the octagon. It was only half, and they sold VIP tickets. So they had the VIP tickets, and then they had like the security rails like all around press row. And I remember it's still on my Twitter to this day. I just sat down and I took a picture. I'm like, well, this is odd. I'm like, they've got security barriers around press row. Meanwhile, 5 hours later, it's all unfolding in front of us. I mean, there's a melee all in front of us, and they're shoving people by. And man, it was wild. That was a wild scenario.
That was Dylan Dennis's one shot at taking a crack at Habib. He threw the flying kick or whatever that was. That was so crazy. Well, speaking of Habib, moving on to topic number 5, his obviously teammate and essentially brother Islam has been called out by Justin Gaethje recently in an interview with the Schmo. Now, I and Justin both agree on this front. We've said time and again, I made a whole video about this, that I want to see Islam versus Gaethje next, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but let me just lay down the foundation of my argument. Who else would he fight? He's not going to fight Arman because of the injury, whatever happened there, and so that's not happening. The only other option will be Charles Oliveira. Not saying that Charles Oliveira shouldn't get slotted in there, but if we look between Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, they both had wins and they both bounced back from a loss, and Justin Gaethje hasn't fought Islam yet. So I'd love to see that, me personally. But let me turn over to you. What do you think of this call out?
No, I like the call, especially with Islam's teams come out and saying like, dude, we don't really want to fight Topuria until he's established himself in the lightweight division. And I think that's fair, to be honest, right? Because Islam is trying to build legacy, right? Not that he's saying, and if you look at it, he's not saying like Ilya is not a great fighter, or Ilya doesn't deserve it or anything like that. He's just saying, look, man, because a lot of people just kind of write off the wins over Volkanovski, right? Like it was number 1, number 2 pound for pound in the world, but you're like, bro, come on, man, quit beating these featherweights. And they would potentially say it again. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Yep.
I look at your legacy and I look at where you stand all time, and you're out here beating up 145 pounders, where it's not like Islam is saying, bro, come on up here with the big boys. It's just like that's who he gets paired up against. So I kind of understand it. And listen, if you say, hey, you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Justin Gaethje versus X. The answer is yes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care who. You just want to see Justin Gaethje fight, and he doesn't have that many opportunities left, and what this would mean to him. So for all the reasons you laid out, I'm absolutely on board. Justin Gaethje has earned himself the right to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. If Justin Gaethje says, you know what, man, I want to fight John Jones right now, that's all that interests me. Done. Let's do it, bro. It's Justin Gaethje versus John Jones. Like, let's go take a look at it. So, especially with Islam, saying that, hey, I don't want to fight a 145 pounder. And by the way, it doesn't hurt that they both have the same manager as well. So that might help things get done. I would have zero issues with that fight coming to fruition.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I've heard so many people get upset by this. They're like, they get outraged when they hear it. Actually, I've had people yell at me in the live chats of other MMA channels that I really like MMA Joey or MMA Guru. And I've talked about how I want Gaethje, and people almost like want me to get out of the chat when I mention it. I don't get that. I still think it's a great fight. And again, I don't really want to see. If Islam doesn't want to fight Ilya, then it makes me not interested in that fight, because I understand where he's coming from, and I see he's trying to build his legacy. So I think it makes way more sense all around to have an alternative route like this, and Charles versus Ilya, Islam versus Gaethje.
Listen, I will say this, and you talked about you gave the caveat as to why it wouldn't be Arman Tsarukyan. I will say this, if Arman's ready to go and the UFC is trying to book that fight, now I do understand. He could say, look, this got ruined last time. I don't want to get ruined again. He could say that, but I would have no problem seeing Arman Tsarukyan either. You know what I'm saying? If it was, Arman has earned the right to be there, so I would have no problem. But with that caveat with the weigh-in miss, it does make it frustrating, man. You don't want to put in all that work, all that effort, and potentially lose a fight, man. There's a lot of money committed to that, a lot of time committed to that. So I understand it if he's like, man, go out there and make 55. Don't make 56, make 55. Against somebody else, and then we'll do it. So yeah, I just don't see how you could say I'm not interested in a Justin Gaethje fight. Come on, man.
Yes, exactly. And I think also too, just as a matter of principle, I think the UFC wouldn't want to slot him back in because they want to send a message, I imagine, to other fighters to some extent. We got a comment from Johnny Monday. He says, great insights from John. He has a unique perspective, having been there during so many legendary moments. Yeah, would you talk about it like back to back of all the fights you've been to and what you've seen? That's so crazy.
It's wild, man. It's funny when I meet somebody like that's an MMA fan, or the first time they're like, oh, what do you do? And I tell them, and they start like, have you interviewed so-and-so? Have you interviewed so-and-so? Have you talked to so-and-so? And I'm like, let me just stop you. It'd be easier for me to probably name who I haven't. It's just been a blessing. Because, dude, look, man. You talk about you going on this journey, and you're a fan, bro. I'm a fan too, man. You know what I mean? Still to this day, I'm a fan. I the first UFC I ever went to was UFC 16 back in 1998. You know what I mean? Like, I have loved the sport from the start, and so to be able to work in an industry that you enjoy and love so much, man, I'm blessed beyond measure.
I gotta say though, that person who you said was a fan was like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" If he was a real fan, he should have known who you were. Come on now, you're one of the most known journalists in the game.
That's when when you get recognized by somebody and they're like, "Are you John Morgan, that media guy?" I'm like, even if you don't know my name, even if you're just like, "Are you that media guy?" I'm like, "You're a fight fan." Because, dude, listen, there's no other sport in the world, right? Like, is anybody hanging out like outside of an NFL stadium and be like, bro, are you that back judge over there, man? Like, are you that umpire? You know what I mean? Like, here it's like, and your referee is Herb Dean, and everybody goes, yeah. Like, who cares for referees? I mean, it's so to be a media member that like people are like, bro, can I take a picture with you or whatever? I'm like, this is like no other sport in the world where it's like that. So it's incredible.
Not only that, I've talked about this too. Like, it's just so crazy. You also have guys like Ariel Helwani, media members that are beefing with fighters or beefing with commentators. And that's a whole like side narrative and side story. I mean, there's just so many different angles and ways that fighters, promoters, the journalists, everybody interacts. It's like an entire crazy ornate like show that is so entertaining. I don't know what to say. And it's all real. It's all real. You can't beat it.
It's wild, man. It's the best.
We got a couple other comments. Justin versus Islam makes sense. Thank you, Big Ankh, for agreeing with us. And what's this question here? Big Is Max versus Dustin in the world? Yeah, I've heard this, but John, you probably know way more than we do. I don't know if you can say or not, but what have you heard about this?
Yeah, I haven't heard whether it's done or not. I've heard the discussions as well, but I have not heard anything being finalized as of yet. I know, the discussion of potentially going to New Orleans in late July. That would be a great opportunity. I mean, Dustin Poirier, that dude is an absolute legend, man, a legend of a human being. So that would be a great one. Certainly wouldn't hate that fight, but I don't know that it's done yet from what I've heard.
All right, moving on. We've got one final topic, and this is kind of just a fun topic. Henry Cejudo, a hero. So you probably know this, but just to catch people up if you hadn't heard, there was a crazy incident in Henry Cejudo's neighborhood about a week ago, I think, or 5 days ago. So four people in a car were, I think, intoxicated in some manner, and they were flying through his neighborhood at 80 miles per hour, veered off the road and went up his neighbor's lawn and crashed into his neighbor's house. There's a photo of it. It's insane. They got out of the car and the neighbor tries to stop them. I think they started like fighting with his neighbor. His wife was on the scene before Henry, and she actually tried to stop the people. And she got hit, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wife. Yep, no. She got hit. And then Henry goes out there and he just like wrecks the people. I think he like pinned down the guy. And it's the funniest thing because there's the local news station goes out and interviews him. And he's like, yeah, he says some of the most hilarious. You got to watch the full interview. It's one of the funniest interviews I've ever seen. But he's like, yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like when I got him on the ground, I slapped him up a little bit because, he crashed into my neighbor's house. What am I going to do? So I had to slap him around a little bit. And then he's like, but if I would have known, because I found out after the fact that he hit my wife, if I would have known he hit my wife before, that would have been bad. And he's like, I'm honestly glad I didn't know that because I don't know what I would have done. But it's just 100%. A crazy story, especially to see a huge MMA icon do something like that. Like, John, when you first heard the story, what was your reaction?
Well, didn't it come right after like his belt was stolen from his house as well? Like there was another. So yeah. I'm like, is this dude like filming like some kind of show over here? Like what's going on? Like, so it's wild. But dude, I love Henry Cejudo, man. I the king of cringe, man. I love it. I've had some amazing interviews and discussions with him over the years, and the way he's real about it, right? Like he got it. Like nobody really cared about him that much. So he's talked about it. I mean, you could go back and find like old interviews where he's like, John, do you know how much pressure I put on myself by going out there with like props and a snake and a magic hat and just all this stuff that I'm doing? He's like, but I'm just trying to create attention. I'm trying to sell. So I'm a big Henry Cejudo fan, man. I know some people aren't fans. I love the guy. I always have, and I always enjoy every chance I get to talk to him. So yeah, craziness going around the Henry Cejudo home right now with everything he's doing. But mad respect to him, man. Go out there and use your skills for good. Be careful out there. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be recommending vigilante justice out there. You never know who's carrying what in the back seat or the trunk or whatever else. You know what I mean? So we can kind of joke about it, but this is a wild scene out there. You got to be a little bit careful out there these days. But Cejudo's a wild man, and I absolutely do agree with him where he said I didn't know that part about the story where his wife got hit, but it probably is better for everybody involved that he didn't know that because again, you want to go out there and protect your family for sure. So.
For sure. Now, a couple of things. There's a couple more points to the story that I want to bring up. But by the way, just talking about Henry Cejudo, I'm a fan of his as well, and I was majorly disappointed at how his last fight unfolded with the eye pokes and everything. But just aside from that, I have really become a fan of Henry Cejudo watching the Pound for Pound podcast. I consume all things MMA related on all these different podcasts and shows. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own because I like that content so much. But do you watch Pound for Pound? Are you a fan?
Yeah, I try to watch as much as I can as well. I mean, obviously it's tough to weigh everything out, but I love both those guys. And so anytime I get a chance, they're definitely in my rotation. I don't catch every episode, but they're definitely in my rotation. I like hearing the expertise. And man, Henry's smart when it comes to breaking things down, man. His analysis, I'm a huge fan of his insight and his knowledge, man. His analysis is spot on.
His analysis is great, and I knew that he was a student of the game in that way even before he started the show because he's talked about it before. He's invited other people to come train with him. But who I am really surprised by on that show is Kamaru Usman. His knowledge of the game, I'm so impressed with his picks, the way he breaks down fights. He was one of the few people, so many people picked Khamzat to lose against Robert Whittaker, and Usman nailed it on the head from the get-go. Now, obviously, he fought Khamzat Chimaev, of course, right? So he has better insights than most. but he's become one of my favorite people to listen to in terms of fight analysis. I love Kamaru Usman.
So I love Kamaru Usman as well, man. I've been a really big fan. This is funny. I don't know why this came rushing back to me. I feel like I shouldn't even bring it up anymore, but yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the whole 30% comment or whatever. I remember I was like, it was a fight that he had, and I was like the only person backstage doing post-fight interviews, and he talked about the fact that I was only fighting at 30%. Not saying like I gave 30% effort or I was only doing 30% of what I could, but Dana White heard that quote and just completely misinterpreted it and like hated on him forever. And I felt awful for so many years because I was like, damn, that was my question, my video, and it got completely misinterpreted. But I love Usman as well, man. I know he caught a lot of grief on his way up. But he's a really good dude. And I think, through the podcast, you really see what a great guy he is, man. He's just a humble dude. I know he's kind of got the brash and the flash and all that, but at his core, man, he's been through a hell of a lot, and he's a great guy. So if people aren't listening to it, I think they should, because you're right, man. You'll hear the expertise of both those men. And I think if you haven't been fans of them, because I feel like both of them have caught some flack from the fans over time. I think if you see them in that light, it might change your perspective on who they are.
It will definitely. I highly recommend it for both guys, but especially Kamaru Usman. I feel like I never really got to know Kamaru Usman until the show came out, and then you really get to see his personality. He's really funny. He's really smart. So all that is great. But going back to the Henry Cejudo incident, two other funny things that I want to mention before we close out the show. Number one, he mentioned it, and again, this is just like a news interview at the local TV station. He mentions that he was high when this happened, so he went out high, and that's what he said. Yeah, I was probably a little bit more chill when this happened. I'm just like, this is the funniest thing ever to mention this at a local interview. And then the other thing, what was it? This bothered me. Okay, this is the point that bothered me. But again, obviously, she wasn't a fan of mixed martial arts. But the reporter goes, oh, so yeah, you fight in this mixed martial arts thing in the UFC. So did that help you with the situation, or is that a totally different type of fighting than what you had to do in this encounter? And I'm like, what do you think mixed martial arts is? This is real. This is why we love the sport. Like it only works in the ring, and it doesn't. Like I was so mad by that statement. You get what I'm saying?
That's hilarious. Hey, bro, you got to remember, man. I've been around this game for a long time, so I grew up in the time that like people were still asking, like, are these fights real? I mean, like the whole "as real as it gets" slogan was because people didn't know. Like in the beginning, I remember, man, people didn't know what the difference between MMA and professional wrestling was. And so, I mean, my stance changed on this over the years. Like in the early days, I was like, man, we don't need like those big in-stage walk-in. We need to, you know what I mean? We need this thing to look as different from professional wrestling as possible, because we need people to understand that these are actually highly trained martial artists in a real fight. Then, I mean, now, other than this one reporter, apparently, it seems like most people know like what's going on, or, and so now it's like, bring in those over-the-top elements, like bring in the entertainment side of it. Like, let's have that aspect of it. But yeah, that's a little bit wild. I would think at this point, most people would realize, this actually works, man. So, but you never know. Dude, it's funny, man. Like, even still, so I have a son that's about to be a teenager, and I've had him training jiu-jitsu since he was like a little kid, like 5 years old, right? And I think every kid should be out there like training in martial arts. But we would have like friends and stuff that would like take him and just put him in karate school or whatever. And I'm like, not that there's anything wrong with karate, but like, have you not watched mixed martial? Like that was the entire point of the understanding of mixed martial arts, is that when two people fight, they may think it's going to be a stand-up fight, but 90% of the time it's going to go to the ground at some point. Like, have them grappling a little bit, have them training that. Like, we've seen real case. We've got 25 plus years of case study in front of us that we can look at, 30 years now at this point.
Oh, this is going to be, Justin's going to hear this and he's going to push me even harder to go to like wrestling and grappling. Cause I don't know if you know this, but I only have trained Muay Thai for the last 5.5 years. I love stand-up.
That's hilarious. I did not know that. I mean, look, Muay Thai is actually what led me to liking mixed martial arts, basically. Long story, but bottom line is I grew up watching professional wrestling, realized it was scripted when I was about 8 or 9 years old, stopped watching at that point. When I was like 12 years old, Guy Mesger was opening a kickboxing gym in Dallas where I grew up. And when we walked in there, through a friend of a friend knew who he was. We walked in there. This was before he was in the UFC. And he had a tape of Muay Thai from Thailand playing, like an old VHS tape. And I saw Muay Thai for the first time from Thailand. And I was like, yo, that's incredible. Like, I want to, know more about that. So I still have an affinity for Muay Thai, man. I think it's an amazing sport, and it's phenomenal. But We're talking about real world, real life scenarios. There's not going to be a referee to break the clinch. I don't know if you're necessarily going to be able to just get in the tie clinch and hold it. People hit the ground. So, yeah, maybe a little bit of grappling wouldn't hurt to just round out the skill set. But I mean, look, also, if you're just doing it for entertainment and fun and, whatever, it's not like you're trying to say, like, I'm just training Muay Thai and I'm going to be UFC world champion someday. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
It's up to
Yeah,
you.
I'm I guess what you would call a hobbyist. I love the sport so much. I love training, but yeah, I don't think I'll ever take a professional fight. Too scared, too
No.
chicken. That's why I respect all the fighters all the more, because they have the balls to get in there. As we close out the show, I got one fun question for you that we'll end on. And again, everybody, thank John Morgan in the chat. John, it's just an honor. I really appreciate it. As I said, I've been watching you for years, and any true MMA and UFC fan knows who you are, knows what you've contributed to the sport. So thank you for joining. It's been a pleasure and frankly a dream. But I want to ask you for this year, because I feel like this could be the biggest year in the history of the sport, which is saying something, because Conor probably won't be scheduled to fight. I still think it'll be one of the biggest. I have my answer. What is the one fight that is in the works that we've heard talked about, or even one that's happened, that you are most excited about for this year, for 2025?
I mean, it's John Jones, Tom Aspinall, right? I mean, there is no other answer. That's the fight you want to see. I mean, it's the greatest of all time in John Jones. It's Tom Aspinall, who is on this incredible rise, and who started out very respectfully, just saying like, hey, I don't mean anything against you, John Jones. I just think you're the greatest on earth, and I want to test myself against you. I want to try to beat you, to now the point that he's putting ducks up on camera, and he's really taking some shots at him. So for me, I mean, that's the fight that I want to see more than any other right now. That's for sure.
Okay. Are you going to lose respect for me if I have a different answer? Because I have a different answer.
No, I mean, you'll be wrong, but I won't lose respect for you.
My answer is Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. I've believed since Khamzat came on the scene that he would one day be the greatest fighter of all time. I think he's the only one that has a chance to maybe. People think I'm stupid for saying this, but I think he could be a triple champ. I could see him moving up eventually to heavyweight and claiming that. I just think he's that good. There's nobody with the ability to drop as low as he does, as quickly as he does, and shoot in the way he does. I just think there's something really, really special about him. Plus his mentality and his mindset, the way he's trained, his focus. And I love his person. I like everything about him. And so to finally see him get this shot that I've been waiting for since 2020, now he's going to get it, and against such a crazy competitor who's undefeated in the UFC right now. It just blows my mind. And then it can be the beginning of who I believe will actually eclipse Conor McGregor. I know that's taking it maybe one step too far, but I think he'll be bigger than Conor when he really has a chance to shine and fight and defend the title numerous times. So that's my 2 cents. That's what I think. But you still think you still think am I at least runner up in that fight?
I mean, you're wrong, but no, that's actually, this is right there. No, I mean, listen, it really is. It's a great one, and you lay out wide. It'll be a great fight. I mean, that's definitely up there. Listen, I don't want to look past Juliana Pena, but if Kayla Harrison is able to beat Juliana Pena, and they're teasing, doing Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes, which, I mean, just rife with storylines there. Plus, you're talking about Amanda Nunes as the GOAT versus Kayla Harrison, who I'm a massive fan of as well.
Me too.
That could be fun as well. So, yeah, absolutely, man. There's some great fights. There really are. So, no lost respect there at all. But I know we don't have much John Jones left. Maybe it's just one more. And to me, I know a lot of people dislike John Jones. I mean, it's crazy. I interviewed John Jones before his UFC debut. I mean, that's how long I've been talking to this guy. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, this is a funny John Jones story. Because this was so long ago. Obviously, this was back before we were doing video interviews and Skype and stuff. This was like recording over the phone type interviews and stuff. And it's one of, I think it's only happened to me 2 or 3 times in my entire life. I did the interview, and the recorder that I was using, the file on it got corrupted. And so it was useless, and I couldn't do anything with it. And I called him back, and I was like, bro, here's what happened. I want to write a story about you, but I don't want to like fake the quotes or try to remember. Do you mind if we do an interview again? And he was like, absolutely. Let's do another interview. And so we had to do the interview a second time. So anyway, have watched that man's entire career, and I know the controversy. I know the things that people throw up, understandable, but in the cage, I believe he is the greatest of all time. And I know we don't have much left. And Tom Aspinall looks like that guy. So it's either going to be Tom Aspinall anointing himself as everything we think he is, or John Jones basically saying, from now on, when you guys had the GOAT conversation, you know what I mean?
Oh, wait.
So
I lost you for 1 second. You said from now on, when we have the GOAT conversation, what was the last thing you said?
from now on, we have the GOAT conversation. We already know who's number one. You just start
Yeah.
the debate at number two. You know what I mean? If John Jones beats Tom Aspinall, like you just have the GOAT conversation. You go, all right. Well, we all know John Jones is the greatest of all time, but who's second best of all time? Let's talk. You know what I mean? Like that would be amazing. So yeah, but amazing fight as well with Hamzat. That dude has been a star in the rise. You know, seeing him from the beginning at Fight Island. There, the whole Fight Island situation. Like he was there as a cornerman. He wasn't even there to be a fight. And he got called on short notice. Luckily, he was in the bubble already. It started all that. Amazing. That'll be a great one as well.
All right, and I will say this: I don't get it twisted. I'm second most excited for John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. And here's my final hot take on that fight: I think John Jones wins. I think he beats Tom Aspinall.
I think he absolutely can as well. To me, I love it though. I mean, that'll be. I mean, good lord, that's just going to be an amazing fight. And I think he absolutely has every capability. How do you pick against John Jones? And I like Tom Aspinall. I'm a fan of the man. I'm a fan of the fighter. I'm a fan of everything. But how do you pick against John Jones? You know, it's like when Demetrius Johnson was on his roll. How do you pick against Demetrius? When Anderson, when George, like how do you pick against them? So I love it. I hope that thing happens in Madison Square Garden, like it's on target to do.
Let's go. Johnny Monday says, thanks, John. We enjoyed it. Western also says, thank you, John Morgan. And thank you guys for joining. And John, once again, thank you. Guys, please, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to click that like button. All the likes and the engagement on the stream really help the channel grow. We are growing like crazy. We're at 1,700 and some subscribers. We're on our way to 2,000. We're having so much fun. We cannot wait. So thank you guys for everything. We'll be back on Monday with our recap at 1:30 p.m. PST. But we'll have tons of videos in the meantime over the weekend talking about this UFC event and all sorts of other things in the world of mixed martial arts. That's it. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take it easy.